Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be having a play with some complementary colour schemes in a really quick art journal page. So on this page I'm just going in with some purples and pinks and fuchsia colours in my background, kind of like the ombre technique that I did in a previous video, but just a little bit mixed up. So again, I'm spreading out the paint with a paintbrush, and I'm not cleaning my paintbrush in between, so I'm using the paintbrush to sort of blend the colors together, going from darkest to lightest, so everything sort of works on the page, hopefully. And obviously to do this technique you need to be using colors within the same color family, so pinky purples will work together, you know, different shades of green, different shades of blue. If I added in, for example, a blue or a yellow onto this page, you're going to start making some different colors and you're going to start getting things a little bit muddy. So to do this technique you need to use colors sitting next to each other on the color wheel. So once my page is dry, I'm going to add some texture into the background. And to do that, I'm just using some mark making stamps. So this is one from Darkroom Doors. So using some black ink and just sort of pressing it out here and there. It's a very long stamp, but by stamping it off the block, I'm sort of getting some more random effects to it. I'm also going in with some light coloured ink. So this is the archival inks in a pink, and sort of stamping it randomly over. And you can see in some places it stands out and in some places it blends in. But the great thing about using the archival inks over particularly Dina Wakley paints or any matte acrylic paints is the archival inks are oil-based ink, so they have a bit of a shine to them when they dry. So when you sort of tip those pages in the light, you'll get these sort of flashes and glints of colour come up off the page that you previously probably didn't see. So once you're finished, I'm just going over the top and drying off my ink. Now, archival inks are water permanent, but you know, you need to leave them to dry for a minute or two because they may smudge. So just be aware, if you've got a heat gun you can just hit them with a heat gun, but if you don't, just leave them to dry for a minute or two and they will be permanent. So this is me using a brand new stencil. You can tell it's brand new because it's clean. And for those who follow my channel for a long time know that one of my favorite stencils that I use all the time is the Dina Wakley Botanical Stencil. This one is by the Crafters Workshop. It's one of the new releases from Julie Van Fay Bolzer, and it's just beautiful. It's a 12 by 12 stencil, so it's huge. It's just fabulous. So it's got more of the same pattern that I really love. On the Botanical Stencil from Dina Wakley, the shape that looks like this is the one that gets used most regularly. So now I've got a 12 by 12 stencil that's got all of it on. To stencil it out, I'm using a contrasting colour. So I've got the turquoise blue, just to make everything sort of stick out from the page a little bit, and just gives a really beautiful contrast to the page. I'm also sort of, with the stencil, bending it and shaping it to the way I want it. So I didn't want to have everything looking exactly the same. I've got them at different heights, and in a moment you'll see me join two of the patterns up together. So experiment with your stencils. Just because they're cut that way doesn't mean you need to use them that way. You can change how you put them together until it suits you. So I had that little bit down the bottom, but it was a little bit chunky looking, so I wanted to extend it off. So I'm just adding on another piece to the top again, just to make it look a little bit more leafy. So you can see I didn't put very much paint out, and that's probably one of the big things with stenciling, is you really use a lot less paint than you expect, and you need to tap it out onto your sponge a little bit before you start stenciling. If you've got a big blob of paint on your sponge when you go to stencil, you're going to have stuff bleed through underneath. Just to finish off this stenciling, I've taking a Posca paint pen that's actually working. I did have to go through and find some because I have killed all mine. And just with really loose scribbles over the top, I'm scribbling out around each of the leaves. Now, I really love doing this because it finishes it off and pops the stenciling off the page, but also it's a really mindless task to do. You can have something going in the background and just go around it. You can see I'm being really loose and free with how I'm doing this, and the stenciling underneath is really just a rough guideline of what I'm doing, and it, to me, looks really good. If I had tried to carefully draw around each of those stenciled pieces, it would actually look really, it wouldn't look as good. It needs those little sketchy lines on it. And while I was doing this, it really made me think about, you know, we talk to children about, oh, make sure you colour within the lines, stay within the lines, yet being free and going outside the lines and being a bit scribbly sometimes actually makes it look more artistic. So I don't know what the lesson from that is, but it was just something that popped into my train of thought as I was doing this. So you saw me tapping my fingers there thinking, right, I really love this, but what do I do next? It needs something. So my go-to is when I need something is to go to the Collage Collective from Dina Wakley and find one of the images in there to use the focal point. And I really loved this image, and I loved how it fitted with this page. One of the reasons I particularly like using the Collage Collective is, apart from the fact I really enjoy Dina Wakley's artwork, is obviously she uses the same colours herself, her own products. So I knew that this girl that was drawn in here was painted using fuchsia and the magenta and the blackberry that you can see in the background. So I knew it matched in with what I had on the page. Because the Collage Collective is actually designed for her journal, which is slightly smaller than Dilutions, I needed to extend the image. So I just got some white paint down the bottom and used a paintbrush to blend it in. Now you will notice that there is some of the ink from the archival ink creeping through the bottom. Because it is oil based, it will try and come up to the surface. So if you don't want that to happen, don't stamp underneath where you know you need to extend your image. I don't mind it because it brings some of those colours in from the background, but just be aware that that might happen. One of my favourite things to do with these images though is to redraw over the sketchy lines with my Stabilo All pencil, just to bring an extra bit of blackness into the page. And again, because I would love to draw like this one day, it's a good practice for my hand to try and draw some of these lines. The final thing that I was going to do, which again is using the complementary colours, is to add some of that yellow back in. There is slight yellow background on the sheet that I cut away from, which I really loved. So I wanted to add some of that yellow in to tie the whole piece together. And again, you know, the purple and the yellow are complementary colours. They're opposite on the colour wheel. So it just really pops that figure out from the background by adding that little bit of yellow in. And it's not much. You don't need very much. But just that little pop really helps. The final thing I wanted to do was to write a quote on this page. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to write, and I looked up forest quotes, which was interesting, but I came with this one, which was just perfect. I hadn't come across it before, and it just sort of summed up the page beautifully. And into the forest I go to lose my mind and find my soul, which is what I do when I art journal. That's, you know, creating a forest like that on my page is my forest, and it's where I go to lose my mind and find my passion. So it was just perfect for this page. So here is a close-up of the final page, and I would really highly recommend that you explore using complementary colours. They are sometimes hard to combine together, but when you get it right, it really makes a difference to your artwork and really makes it pop out from the background. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please hit the like and subscribe button, and there's some videos on the left hand side that might interest you as well, to see some of the other artwork that we've got on this channel. Until next time, bye for now.